Welcome to the Hawks Talk podcast. All things Blackburn Hawks.
In behind the defence, cuts around, scores! Blackburn Hawks win this game 8 goals to 5.
All the latest news, player interviews and much more.
Shoots, scores!
Hawks Talk.
Before we begin this episode, we at Hawks Talk and the whole Blackburn Hawks organisation would like to take a moment to remember the Northwest hockey legend Pete Sheffield, who sadly passed away recently. Pete was a former Hawks team manager and more recently known for his involvement with the Drop the Puck team. He was a hockey fan through and through, a great ambassador of the sport and an even better person. Our most sincere condolences go out to Pete's family, friends and colleagues. Pete will be greatly missed.
Hawks Talk.
Welcome along to episode 22 of the Hawks Talk podcast. I'm Graham Hamilton, your host, as we talk about all things Blackburn Hawks. Joined as always by my co-host Aidan Wignall. First of all, we've got to give a big shout out to the Hawks forwards Josh Crawley and Dara Sporforth, who are currently in Germany with the Great Britain's under-18s team. We've got something a little bit different planned for this episode. We're going to be talking to two people involved with two different clubs in our league. One of them has not got off to the best start this season, but it was to be expected. And the other team is performing a little bit better than people would have thought. Before we get into that, don't forget to get your questions in for the next podcast. We are going to be chatting to Hawks forward Josh Crawley and defenceman Bailey Thomas. This one's been slightly delayed with Josh being away with GB. You can send those questions in via email, hawkstalk@blackburnhawks.com, or you can send myself or Aidan a message. All the information on all the recent results, upcoming fixtures, merchandise and much more is available right now at blackburnhawks.com, or follow our socials, just search Blackburn Hawks. Well, let's get into this episode's interviews.
Hawks Talk.
Joining myself and Aidan on the Hawks Talk podcast, we have host of the Widnes Wild podcast, Time to Go Wild, match night announcer for the Widnes Wild, Colin Ellis. How are you, Colin?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on the Hawks Talk.
No, it's a pleasure. Are you all set for Christmas?
No, absolutely not. It's one of those things, there's that much hockey going on around me. It's work, hockey, work. So what's that?
No. I think I'm all set just about. I'm quite well prepared this year, I think. What about you, Aidan?
No, I've got 4 kids to buy for, mate. So it's, it's when you've got 2 that are like 17 and 19 and they don't know what they want. You know, you've got a 13-year-old that breaks his phone 2 weeks before Christmas. So, yeah, it's a bit fun in our house at the minute. So, needless to say, the next couple of days are going to be spent rushing around shops and getting different presents and trying to finish everything off, really. Also, Cherry's working on Christmas Eve as well. So, it knocks a little, her usual routine out the window as well, which usually involves wrapping presents and brandy and baby shams.
Sounds good. So before we get into talking about the Widnes Wild, let's talk about your podcast. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the reason behind setting up the Wilds podcast?
Well, originally it came off the back of me starting my own radio show. And it was through Halton Community Radio, quick name drop, and local radio, community radio station in Halton. And another friend of mine at the Widnes Wild was like, oh, he'd been over and seen me in the studio. And he's like, oh, hey, we could do something with this. And we got talking about it. And originally it started off actually as a live radio show for an hour. And it went down really well. Once COVID hit, of course, things sort of ground to a halt. A lot of things changed, as we all know. And I've been slowly accumulating my own little bits and bobs to do my own radio show from home so I could record it and then send it in. And when we started doing the behind closed doors games, it just seemed like the logical transition to move it as an online podcast and take it from there. And it's mainly a format to get a post-match interview, a few comments, a few thoughts, not just about the Widnes Wild, but about ice hockey across the UK, bit of the NHL, North America, but primarily the UK and across the north of the UK. Because to give a bit of background on myself, really, my hockey roots started in Hull. So that's where I first started with my connection with ice hockey, was over with the then Kingston Hawks back in 1998. So that's when I first started watching. So I've had a good grounding with a lot of good people over there. And then when I moved back to Liverpool, the Widnes Wild was starting up and the rink hadn't long opened, etc. So my love of radio goes back years and years. I mean, when I was very little. So starting up the podcast and then sort of thinking, what can you put into it? And this sort of simple little things like the scores and the tables. And you can have a discussion with a player. Sometimes you can get the home and the away team. It's a way of, I see like a free advert. As a former videographer. That was how my original involvement with the Wild was. And the videos, as you know as well, for the Hawks and all the other teams around, when they've got their highlight videos out there, it's a brilliant advert for the game. And people across the whole world can see the variety and the quality of British ice hockey, not just in the men's game, but the women's game, and sometimes even with junior games. So it's, although I don't play, it's my way of giving back to the sport I love watching.
I mean, obviously, you're the match night announcer at Widnes as well. How did you get involved in that? How did that start?
Well, as I said, I started originally as the videographer, but as announcer, I was actually the juniors announcer. We, the initial few years of the academy, we'd had a good start, a bit of a change, a bit of a rebuild. And then when we started, I think around about 2016, 2017 time, if memory serves, I'd been sort of, as I say, involved with radio and the likes by that point. And I had some equipment of my own and sort of said to Mikey Gilbert, who's head of the academy, you know, if I'll be around and if there's anything going on. So I started announcing at the initial juniors games, and it sort of grew from there. So it's not just Widnes Wild, it's pretty much most of the teams out of Planet Ice Widnes, ironically.
Okay.
In fact, on Sunday just gone, I was announcing for the Widnes Wild women, and I was lurking around the rink, and next thing, the Halton Huskies had a scrim against the Royal Navy. And all my equipment was still set up at the time. So I went, oh, well, I may as well just stay. So they got the same. And it lifts a game and it makes it so much better and more fun for everybody that's around. So it sort of spiraled from announcing for the juniors. Then when COVID hit, our announcer that we had wasn't able to announce for those games. And the guys from BASN who did drop the puck back then, were coming in to do the video streaming. So I said to Matt Lloyd, who was chairman at the time, well, I'll take over the announcing for this. And it continued on from there.
Oh, well, seems like cameras have got us both into the position that we're in then. I started off wanting to do photography with them. So, you know, during COVID myself, I messaged Graham and said, you know, there's not many stills going about, through that. And obviously due to COVID and the amount of people, I wasn't allowed to go down. But then, you know, I managed to get down and got talking to the right person. With me being, you know, I do private DJing and, you know, I obviously spoke to the right person. That's how I got started in there. So, you know, I think I've been doing it for about 3 to 4 years now. And just basically, I did actually get to stand in your position for the Ken Armstrong testimonial. So, well, I did that one.
Yeah, I gathered. It was unfortunate because I was down in Sheffield at the time at the WNIHL finals weekend. So originally the schedule would have fallen so that I was going to travel back after the last game because of the schedule for that finals weekend. We had more games on the Sunday than we originally had planned. So I wasn't able to come back because I still had the Elite League the Elite League final for the WNAHL to announce for. And
fantastic.
I must admit, it was a fantastic weekend down there. I must admit, the women's finals have been brilliant. Quick plug. But honestly, it has been a really, really good event the last 4 years, the women's finals. And I couldn't sort of turn around to them and say, look, I'm going to leave you in the lurch on the last day and I'm going back up for Ken's testimonial. But I was gutted I couldn't be there for Ken. So, I mean, I've been there since game one.
Oh, well, I know. No, I think Ken got an assist on every single goal that night as well.
As he should. As he should.
So, when like you're choosing your music, are you just literally like, do you sit down and pre-plan everything, or is it just a free for all and you just see what you want to play, or do you have a specific sort of range in which you do it?
It's sort of been inspired from hockey matches I've been to over the years. And it's a case of, does this song work, doesn't it? Has this song got the right kind of hook, or doesn't it? And things might not necessarily be to my taste, but it's what works at hockey. No. So that is the caveat I put behind it. So you can listen to it and go, well, that's got quite a good rock.
I'm like that.
So you'll test it out on the rink system. It might sound great at home on your headphones or on speakers, and you play it over the rink system and actually go, no, that one doesn't work very well. But you play a different one, you think maybe, and you think, oh yeah, that's definitely working. So you've got a range of rock, pop. I think some of the club classic stuff works quite well. And then you've got, your clap clap and your YMCAs and the like, so your cheesy songs as well. And sometimes
cha-cha slides are good.
Yeah, exactly. The choice goes down to the mood of the game as well, I find.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to try and match the mood of the game to the songs you're playing. So if it needs a lift, you'll play a particular type of song. And if it's sort of going along in a particular way, you'll need to buoy the fans up, for example. And it is a tricky one, particularly when you get a bit of a dead moment in a game where you've got a long stoppage because you need to do some repairs. It's a case of, well, watch the crowd going a bit, and that's when it's tough.
Well, over the last few weeks, what I found myself doing is like I'd sit down on a Friday and just try and get a list of songs together and try and bring in different ones and new ones as well. So it's not stale. So I try and do different ones. Like I bring it where I've got like a rock in the first period, a dancey old school classics in the second, and then in the third that's when I play all the party music. Just to try and keep people interested, keep them dancing and up and whatnot, and keep a bit of a party atmosphere in the rink. I mean, you just mentioned there about the speakers. I don't know if you've been to Blackburn, but the sound system is absolutely dire.
Oh, I have had many a frozen night. Videoing in your little booth on the back row, and a little truth is I left Blackburn Rink and it's an hour door to door from Blackburn Rink to my house, and although I did have the heater on reasonable in the car, my toes didn't defrost till I got in the shower. It was that cold that night.
Oh man,
an old Blackburn Eagles game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, when the Eagles were still around.
Wow, that's some time.
But I've been up to Blackburn quite a few times, and it is actually a decent rink. And a lot of people knock it in some ways, but when you look at the facility itself, it's a big pad. It's got plenty of good viewing positions and good seating area, plenty of parking, and it is a really good sized venue, particularly if you want to put larger events on. And, it's that kind of, when it was built for a purpose. But it's good that it keeps going, and it's appreciated by everyone in the community.
Yeah, definitely. Last season you did the playoffs, didn't you, in Sheffield, I believe? Tell us what that was like.
Well, a little rewind. I did the previous year's playoffs for Div 2 at Widnes and Div 1 in Altrincham. And then, as you said, last year, I was announcing for the full weekend when they combined them down in Sheffield. It's a busy weekend. The entire team, backroom team, organisers, all the volunteers, they pull the stops out. They really do a stellar job. It's tough going. It's no mean feat to organise these weekends, and they really work hard. And the finals weekend had some surprises. The games that sort of stick out for me over that weekend, there was the semi-final that featured Coventry for the Division 2, and Coventry just seemed completely and utterly out of it for 2 periods. It's a case of they're getting sort of shoved around and it's just not working. The game's dead. And then all of a sudden in the 3rd period, they're banging goals in
they were.
Business. And it's like, hang on a minute, this game's come to life. And all the neutrals were really shouting for Coventry. And the atmosphere just went bigger and bigger. And as for the finals, both of them go into a penalty shootout. It was like, okay, here's one. And it's like, well, here we go again. And neither team gave quarter in either game. And it was fantastic to see it. In many ways, it's cruel to lose on a shootout, but it proves just how competitive those playoffs were in the end, that the teams that were in there for the weekend had done so well, and then they went that extra mile in those finals, and it was an absolutely brilliant event.
Going into that weekend, were the winners from that the winners that you expected going in? Or, I mean, particularly with the Laidler, I think everyone had the Tigers winning that quite comfortably, and probably with the Moralee, more likely the Stars, I think.
For the Moralee, I would have said Stars were the favourites. Blackburn were definite contenders. They were definite contenders. And the final was pretty much exactly what we were going to expect. It turned out that from the perspective of those of us who've been there the whole weekend, I felt it a little bit for Billingham in the final, because a fair portion probably of their third line, lower lines, had actually had to play for the Buccaneers in the previous final. So,
a couple of them did play for the Bucks.
Had a slightly, I'll say not older team, but a bit more physically strong team, plus fresher legs going into that final. And the fact that it was end to end, and as you say, a shootout, it was a testament to just how strong both teams were. As for Laidler, a lot of teams probably would have thought it would have been the top 2, but nobody really, when you think back to the beginning of last season, the Billingham Buccaneers, most of us would have, particularly with their penalty minutes early in the season.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd have put it down to the fact that they're going to be also rounds. They may get to the playoffs, but they probably won't get to finals weekend. The fact that in their inaugural season, they not only made it to finals weekend, but played an absolute blinder in the finals, was a testament to just how a team can develop across the season. And it gave the excitement that it wasn't necessarily the top seeds that won, which is good for the sport. It proves that the whole season isn't just the league and that's it. You might finish 4th, you might finish 5th or whatever in the league, but you've still got the chance of a high-profile trophy at the end of the season.
That's very true.
That's the beauty of the playoffs.
Which would you hold more regard to, I guess, the league or the playoffs? Because hockey's a little bit different. Obviously, being British, we're brought up in that sort of league mentality, aren't we? Particularly with football. What's your take on that?
For me, a league title in some ways does hold a bit more weight than a playoff title. As you say, the football background that most of us have, the way in which British sports always has focused is more so on a league. And the thing with the league is it's about the longevity throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
You can have you've got to be consistent. You've got to build. You've got to keep that strength going throughout the whole season against all of the other teams. Whereas in the playoffs, it is a smaller group. And sometimes when you get to the back end of the season, you can have injuries taking their toll. You can have different things taking their toll on a team. So a lower team could potentially have not had to push as hard, so not got as many strains or knocks. Hence, they could take a playoff title. But they both have their merits. And the whole point, it gives you something to make the season more than just a case of, oh, well, we're 7th in the league now. If it's Christmas, we're not really going to do anything. Well, actually, you could actually fight for a different trophy at the end of the season. And it gives the fans something extra in that, back end of the year.
Yeah, that's true. Now let's move on then to talk about the Widnes Wild. I think it's fair to say it's been a tough season so far for you. Last in the league with 3 wins, 9 out of 19 games on 8 points, and you're out of the cup. What's your opinion on how the season's gone so far? Has it gone how you thought it would?
Yeah. Not quite how I was thinking. It's been tougher than I thought it was going to be. Trying to put the right words to it. It isn't easy when you're having to prop up the table. When you look at the squad, I'm not making excuses. I'm just looking at the way the squad's built up. We've got some more veteran-y players, and then the bulk of the squad are no older than 21. So it's a very, very young squad. It's a very different kind of squad than a lot of the Widnes supporters are used to seeing. It's, again, with it being young. There are a couple of games that I was very disappointed with the results. One of them was a game against Sheffield at home. From the start of the season, I thought we would have had a better chance against Sheffield. Admittedly, we have had an overtime and a regulation win now against them. I'm not knocking Sheffield. Sheffield Scimitars have always tried to put out really good teams, and in the past have put out very good teams.
Yeah,
Leeds Knights have always were an unknown this year. They're doing pretty well. I'm going to mention the Nottingham Lions because for many years they were the whipping boys of Moralee. How many years it was since they moved from Laidler into Moralee and they didn't win a game. And
it's true.
As I've said to a lot of people, sometimes you have a bad year or a bad couple of years. And Nottingham, when they first went into Moralee, was stuck at the basement. Not so long back, the Whitley Warriors finished bottom of the Division 1 and played Widnes in a promotion relegation game. So, they had a rebuild. Billingham had a rebuild. Deeside have had a bad few years. Now they're running strong. Hull, once a top ED1 team, when they were Kingston Jets, went into Division 2, have rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt, and now back in the Division 1, they're sitting well in the mid-table. This is Widnes' time to have to rebuild. Blackburn and Hawks have been through it as well. I remember when I first started watching ED hockey or NIHL hockey, Blackburn Hawks were flying high in Division 1. They were winning and winning and winning. And then you had a couple of years when you weren't. And it's tough. So it is a tough thing to have to sit with. My connection with Hull goes back to times when we had the old British National League and the then Hull Thunder went bust several times. It was a very tough league financially to be in. It was a very tough league to play in for the level of the hockey. It was a good level. But at one point, the money dried up and we ended up with an all-British squad getting beaten week in, week out. But the core fans stuck with it because they believed in hockey. They believed in the team. And as you know, with Blackburn, that's what keeps the club going. And that's the best thing I can say, really. It's a case of belief, faith, and vision into the future. And Widnes this year, we're having to work hard for it, and it's a tough, tough season.
Yeah, I mean, with the change of ownership that we've had since COVID, we went on that little bit of a journey as well of being lower seeded in the league and losing more games than we won. And you kind of touched on it there. I was going to ask you, would you say you were in a rebuild? Because how do you think things need to change moving forward for the Wild?
For me, it's keeping your core locally sourceable players. We've got a very large connection now with Kilmarnock. I know a lot of people say about the Scottish players and this, that, and the other. In the end, players will travel if they want to play hockey, and some will just do it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
If the finance allows them to do it, they will travel. And it's all about experience, and you've got to fight for your spot. And if you want to play, you've got to fight for it. And you can see with Widnes this year, it is a rebuild. We've got, as I say, a lot of young players. It's giving opportunities to young players, the likes of, we had Jake Meehan last year. We've had Joel Bark. We've got Ben McClellan, who was one of was part of the academy for a few years, went to Blackburn and Altrincham. He's back with us this year. Luke Alston, Jared Knowles, a lot of these young players who are known within our local area. And if they give as much as they are giving now, I mean, you can't ask for more. They're going to learn. They're going to grow. It's just about making sure that when the big hits come in, they're looked after. They know they can skate through it. There are some senior players who can look after them in those very physical games, but it's about them growing. I mean, players like Jacob Lutwich, he's a fantastic talent. Josh Crawley, fantastic talent. These guys can grow with the right players around them, and it's all for the better of the sport.
How's the feeling currently around Widnes? Obviously the things haven't been going right or not going your way, like you said about rebuilding. Are the fans buying in with this rebuild? Is there a lot of frustration? How do you think that is around Widnes at the minute?
I think it's a bit of both. There is a lot of frustration, but when the fans are there and they see the team fighting for the points, an example is a couple of weeks back, not so much the previous game against Whitley, the one before that, we unexpectedly took the lead, and then it was like an old swingometer game. 1 minute it was with Whitley, then it was back with Widnes, and it's like a case of, we've got a game on here, and you could tell the fans were starting to believe, and you can see the change in the way the squad had been playing from the beginning of the season to that point. And it's about getting the fans to believe again. And when they see the passion coming off the players on the ice, they are getting behind the team. Yes, they're frustrated, but I've actually said to a lot of them, we've been blessed with some very, very good quality players over the years. When you look at having a player like Scott McKenzie as player coach, or Ollie Barron and the guys from Sheffield, when we had those players, they were high quality players, especially when we were in Division 2. When you had the COVID Cup, we got very lucky that a lot of the then Hull Pirates players didn't have a team, and we got a load of those guys in, and they were phenomenal quality players, but they were National League quality. So I think a lot of teams at that point in that COVID Cup did get a lot of National League strength players in, and people were seeing these players and going, wow. And then, of course, their parent clubs are back, and so they've gone. And it is tricky sometimes when your squad's been heavily bolstered with those. And Widnes were fortunate to have that kind of bolstering, but unfortunately, we're now in the position where we don't have those players available. So we're having to bring through the younger talents now.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at, you had one last year. He's gone to Hull now. Is it Reece? Reece Edwards was quite a good talent that came through as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Reece, especially, he's a phenomenal talent, and if as long as that talent is nurtured in the right way, you're looking at somebody who can go the distance. Hockey is about opportunities and being able to take them, and some players flourish, some players the nerves get to them. It's one thing I say to a lot of people is about getting the British players through is where's the next GB top players going to come from?
Yeah, great point.
Goalies have been a tough one. It's always been tough to get a GB starting goalie. Stevie Lyle was number one for many, many years. He was a kid when he started in goal for GB. Stephen Foster, when he was GB number one, he was only young. Stephen Murphy, he got a good break when he was at Fife. And then it's a case of, well, Murphy's coming towards the end of his career. Where's the next GB goalie? It was Ben Bounds. And Boundsy got his break at Hull. So it was all about a coach having some faith and letting somebody take a chance. And the player managed to keep their head and grow. And look at Bounds now. Multi-trophy winner with Cardiff, been over to Europe, been really renowned on the international stage with GB, and so you've got to use that as a vision for the young players, likes of a Reece Edwards, a Kieran Brown, for example, a Jacob Lutwich. They have to look at this and say there are opportunities for us. We've got to take it in the right way. But also my message to the coaches is have faith in the young British players. They've got the talent. Just nurture that talent and let it grow.
Obviously, being a Hawks podcast, we need to talk about the games between the Widnes Wild and the Blackburn Hawks. There's been two of them so far. From a Hawks perspective, away, a 16-2 win. How was that game for you?
A bitter pill to swallow. However, putting it in perspective, I was under no illusions at the start of the game. I mean, those of us who know a lot of the Blackburn players I know your coach, Dominic Osman. I remember him he was at Hull when I was at Hull, ironically. So Ozzy knows me. I was under no illusions. Blackburn are a big physical squad. They have got some very strong, physically strong players. We are not so strong in that way. We're trying to skate through it. It was, put it politely, men against boys. I'm not gonna gloss over it. It was, and when you've got a squad that's physically strong, mentally strong together, been playing together for a lot longer than some of us can even remember with hockey. I mean, some of them have been playing for Blackburn for forever. I mean, Aaron Davis is a prime example. He is, you can cut him anywhere and he is a Blackburn Hawk. And it's very hard when you go up a team as strong as that. But it was going to be a hard game, and we've beaten Blackburn in the past.
You have.
This time it's Blackburn's turn to win, but we need to take from that game what we can, grow, and come out not scared and play our best when whoever we play. And Blackburn Hawks this year are proving to be one of the teams to watch. I mean, you look at the table, for example, they are right up there, and I have no doubt in my mind they will be in the playoff finals this year. And because of the change in format, there's even more. If you want to get to the finals weekend, you've got a lot to play for, and they want it. They want to defend that title. They want that league title back after several years away, and you can see it. So, whatever, we also know the way Blackburn play. They are very strong. They crash the goal. They will be on top of you straight away. And for the Hawks fans, it's what you like to see. It's exciting hockey to watch. And it's very tough hockey to play against.
Yeah. One thing I took away from that game, particularly from a Widnes perspective, was, and it was quite good to see that you never stopped skating for the full 60 minutes. Even obviously with the scoreline of 16-2, the players never gave up. They battled for every puck. And as for a neutral, you've got, looking into that game, you've got to respect that, because when you look at that scoreline, no one wants to be a part of a game like that, do they? Especially on the losing side.
Oh, no. And yeah, I totally agree that, it's good when a team that is on its knees isn't playing as if it's on its knees. They're going to come out and still try and pick up a goal, pick up a point, do what they can to make the game still a game. Sometimes it can be one of those games where no matter what you do, that puck is not going to go in the net. So, we've been there. The three of us have been at games where a goaltender has stood on their head. They've done absolutely everything. They've fired pucks at them left, right, and centre, and they've still lost because the opposition have just managed to get the puck in the net at the other end. On this occasion, I mean, it was a one-sided game, but when you look at the effort, you look at the push, you look at the drive, and it's a case of they're still coming out there, heads held high, battling. You can't ask for more in the end for 60 minutes, really. That's why you've gone to watch the game. It's sometimes the result isn't going to be what you want, but as long as you've battled, that's great.
Definitely. I mean, the most recent game, which, to be fair, credit where it's due, was a dramatically improved performance, I think, from the Wild. 7-1 win for the Hawks, but in hockey, sometimes the scoreline doesn't reflect the game. And for that second period, I think Aidan will probably agree with me. You shut us down fantastically.
Yeah. It is a shame I don't get to the road games now, but yeah, as you say, when you can look at it, sometimes even looking at shots on goal, it doesn't necessarily reflect it, because if you've got bodies on the line in front of the goaltender and the shots coming in left, right, and centre, but if they don't reach that goal and the last man stops it, it's not a shot on goal, even though it is a shot at the goal. So if you're shutting a team down, that can be half the battle. And putting a competitive performance on, going out there and working hard, I can't ask for more from the guys. I mean, they are absolutely working their socks off, and it's just one of those tough seasons. So, praise where praise is due. Blackburn have recruited really well, got a really good, strong set of players, and they're going to look strong. Widnes are having to start from a very different perspective, and we will hopefully reap the rewards in the longer term. And I mean, even Blackburn have had to sort of take a step back and bring in new players. I think back to the older or the earlier days, sort of like 7-8 years ago, you had some really, really strong core players. And you look at the squad now, and a lot of them aren't there anymore. But you can see what's grown to replace them.
I mean, going what you're saying there about the squad itself, we sort of had to do a rebuild after the D-side lads left. So, I think they shut down their ice arena to make it into one of the hospitals, for the COVID at the time. So
the Nightingale facility.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name. So, when you look at that, like Wainwright gone, Dixon had gone, Dickinson went, Petr Velusiak went, Clancy, they all left, so they took a bit of the core of the team there. Yeah, Snips went as well. So, from what you're saying, we have had to go through that rebuild, and it's like you said, I think only 2 seasons ago we were on the borderline, and whether or not, I think it was between us and Nottingham as to whether we were going to make it through the playoffs. So, I understand what you're saying, and I think I've been to your place and watched us get beat. I've seen you beat us on our home ice, so
yeah. Oh, it goes in swings and roundabouts for me, and we had a season. I think it was my second season when I was in Hull. We went, 14 games unbeaten, home and away.
mhm.
But unfortunately, it wasn't enough. When it got to the playoffs, we went out in the group stage, and it was so unfortunate because that squad was on fire. And as you say, this year is very different to the year that Ollie Barron, Stu Brittle, and the team then in their third year with the club did the double in Laidler, where I was filming back then, and I was on from the little filming spot we had at the time, and I remember watching opposition coaches hanging their heads, going, "What do I do?" Because they put all their eggs into shutting down the first line, and they'd shut down that top line. They were hardly putting any points in. Problem was, for the opposition, our third line was scoring like a second line. Our second line scoring like a first line. When you have that kind of depth in any squad, and I'm not just using Widnes as an example, but any team, the opposition's going to struggle. And a team like Billingham and Blackburn at the moment have got that kind of depth in their squad where your first line doesn't necessarily have to put up the big points every week, but you take your foot off from them and they'll punish you. And, you've got some really good quality players on your squad that can punish. So you've got to put the barricades up to shut the first line down, but you end up tiring. The next thing, the third line starts cutting through. And it's one of those things, but as long as players keep in mind that, to coin the phrase, every dog has its day, it will come. And, a bad day with the goaltender can be the difference. So, Harry Campbell playing for Widnes, he's a phenomenal talent, really, really phenomenal talent. He's just so young. And again, Keddy, for you guys, he was outstanding in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Absolutely outstanding in last year's playoffs. And he's been outstanding this year. Alex Oldale, now at Manchester Storm. I remember seeing him getting their goaltender last year, got injured, and he got called in. And it's a case of, oh, right, they're having to put Alex in. The rest of the game, he played a blinder. And he had several blinders for Storm last year. And it's like, that proves sometimes you go in, and if the particularly with goaltenders, they're the only player that technically plays the whole game.
That's true.
They go in, and sometimes once they get in the zone, sometimes it is like catching fly with chopstick. Nothing's getting past them. And other days they can't catch cold.
No.
They just
I think I saw that. Was it Alex played in an exhibition game? Was it against Nottingham in Sheffield? And he made that absolute. I think he was on his back and he sort of dropped his glove off and caught it.
I remember hearing about that.
Some save with that. I think we're watching it on the YouTube.
It was the first game back after the Adam Johnson incident, and the Panthers played the Storm. Yeah, on YouTube it was.
Yeah. That save he made was some save. But you're seeing it now, like you said. You got Campbell. I think was it Campbell that was in on Sunday. He faced 57 shots and only conceded 7.
That's a lot.
So it is. He had 57 shots on him on Sunday, and then you look at Hammond last week for Billingham. It's not often we don't score. The lad had 35 on him and kept a clean sheet. So it's
that. Yeah.
Some netties do have the time. I mean, I think one of my first ones I saw were Oliver Thomason at your place last year. I think we won 5-0. That's one of the first shutouts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
There is a lot in our league.
Yeah, there's sometimes, as you say, there's times when a goaltender, they are so in the zone. The glove is moving that quick, but for the goaltender, it's not. It's all in slow motion for them that day, and they're just like, how? I mean, I always do it try and make sure I announce the shots on goal. And even if a team's been battered, you can then sort of say, hang on a minute, that goaltender's seen 65 shots or something. So let's put this in perspective. They may have let in 7 goals, but they've faced 65 or 70 shots sometimes. It's a case of, well, you put that in proper perspective. Sometimes that can be 3 or 4 shots on the go in front of goal. It's not just single shots. They could be 2 or 3 shots. And it's like the third one goes in. Well, that's tough to make that many saves on the bounce. Football goalkeepers usually see 1 or 2 at most in that way. Goaltenders could see that 6 or 7 times in a period, never mind in a game.
It's true.
Yeah. I think when you beat us, at our place, you had Trossardi in goal, and the guy just stood on his head. He was like a man bouncing in the net.
Oh, Luca. First game we saw Luca play.
Harrison's had his day as well.
Oh, Harrison on fire was phenomenal. Luca, when we first saw Luca play, we'd never seen this guy play. And you thought, oh, well, okay, what's he like? And then we watched him moving around in the goal. And he's so quick and so agile. It's like, he's mad. He's loopy as anything. Love him. Absolutely love him to bits. He's a fantastic guy. Off the ice, he's really nice off the ice. He's a really nice guy. And, like I say, some goaltenders just have that kind of something about them.
Yeah, that's certain bit of madness. Obviously, like one of our defenders has come to join you this year, Ben McClellan. How do you think he's done?
Ben's been getting a lot of ice time now. I mean, I watched Ben when he was playing for our under-18s a few years back, so I knew Ben anyway, and it was just an unfortunate thing, I suppose, the way Hawks' squad had grown, that unfortunately for Ben, I don't think he was going to be getting much ice time. Widnes, as we are, he slotted straight in, and he's been getting lots of ice time, and he's been doing a stellar job. And to be honest, he's doing everything that's asked of him, and he's standing there. You put the big hits in when he needs to, put the body on the line, skating well, moving well, passing well. Can't ask for more from him. He's doing exactly what I remembered him doing when he was with our academy. He's just a lot bigger now. As in, he was big, tall, but he's got a lot more muscle on the bones now.
One last question then before we let you go. Who do you think is going to be taking on the major trophies this year? Can we get a prediction from you for the league, the cup, and the playoffs?
The cup, I haven't really paid much attention to the cup, really, because of the way in which the fixtures run. Let's just have a quick look. The semi-final at the moment. You've got Hull, Blackburn. I'm not sure who else is qualified for the cup.
It's between Billingham and Deeside, I think, in Group A.
I think. Oh, that's it. I think it all comes down to the draw. Deeside are a very, very tricky team to play this year. It all depends on how they play on the day. Sometimes I feel with Deeside.
That's true. I'd agree with that.
Their style of play can determine the outcome, because they are a very physical team. Hull as a team are very skating. They skate well, they flow well. So not knowing who either Hawks or Hull are going to get, it's a tricky one to say. I think Hawks, again, it depends on the opposition. I think Hawks have a good chance of the final. Cup, I can't say. I couldn't predict it at the moment. The league, I'm putting my money on a 2-way run. Favourites are Billingham again to retain the league title. I think the Hawks are going to be very much nipping at their heels this year. I mean, they're currently second. Deeside, possible outsiders. Solihull have had a bit of a pickup recently, but I'm putting it as Billingham for the title and probably Hawks nipping at their heels for the runners-up, maybe, depending upon if Billingham have a few slip-ups, sneaking it. For the playoffs, who's going to make it to the finals weekend? Because, of course, this year it's only the top two because it's the finals and then the grand final this year. So, probably a repeat of last year's final at the moment. Looking at the way the teams are, I'm predicting a Billingham-Blackburn final in Sheffield.
I'm nervous already just thinking about it.
Yeah. Billingham have a good run this year. It's how well they run on the playoffs. Blackburn had the physical strength to keep going through the playoffs. But this is hockey. And last year it was proven with the Buccaneers in Division 2 taking the playoff title. So we can be so far on a prediction and get completely wiped out. But that's where my money's would be going, so to speak, this year. I think Billingham for the league and then a Hawks Stars final, but that could go either way. That really could go either way because they're very different styles, but they can match each other in different ways.
Yeah, that's true. I'd agree with that. Thank you then, Colin, for taking the time to come on Hawks Talk. Do you want to just tell everyone where they can listen to the Time to Go Wild radio podcast?
Yeah, when I get around to doing them, you can catch them on the Widnes Wild's YouTube page, which is Widnes Wild Ice Hockey Club. And we're also on Podbean for the more recent ones as well, which is ttgwradio.podbean.com. So that's where they are. They're also picked up by, I think it's Amazon Podcasts as well. So, we try our best and just bring a little bit of something, as you guys do. You do what you can with what you have, and everyone does a stellar job. We're all volunteers in the end, but we do it for the love of the sport.
100%. Thank you again, Colin, for taking the time to come on. We'll definitely have you on in the future.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you again soon.
See you on the 25th.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Hawks Talk.
Our second guest on this episode of the Hawks Talk podcast, joining myself and Aidan, a voice that may sound familiar to some of you if you've watched the Nottingham Lions streams on YouTube. It is Lions commentator Dylan Pick. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, lads. How are you this evening?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Are you all set for Christmas?
Yeah, back from uni now for about a month, and it's that time of the year for most sports fans now where they kind of forget about their sports unless it's football, which runs through Christmas, and they put their eyes onto the darts. I know I'm certainly going to be doing it. We've got the Christmas break now for NIHL 1, so it's certainly time to relax and focus on something a bit different.
Definitely. Do you want to tell us a little bit then how you got into hockey and then how you come to be involved with the Nottingham Lions?
Yeah, I mean, I am a massive sports person. It's the thing I am studying at university. It's weird. Men's hockey was actually the last thing I got into. I've followed it loosely for ages, and then I followed a lot of para ice hockey and the sled hockey at the Paralympics because it's just very interesting. And the first game I actually got to go to in person was the Women's Olympic qualifiers in Nottingham in 2021, which is quite nice to say that I was able to work the media team at the weekend with them and see them in Sheffield as they narrowly got eliminated from the qualification. And working in the Lions, I've been working commentary since I was about 14. So before I actually watched ice hockey properly, so since about 2019, I've been doing it loosely. And then at 14 and 2021, I took it really seriously. And the Lions, the position came up last year, I think, with Chris Gadsby being very busy with BBC Nottingham, Max Artiste now at the Storm and John O'Bullard at the Panthers. I saw an advertisement. I wanted to grow more into traditional sports, as I've been doing a lot of work in esports. That's how my first commentary stuff really came in, doing lots of professional sim racing. Saw the opportunity for ice hockey, put my name out there, and here I am.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously, I think with when you get the Nottingham Lions, the late face-off, that a lot of us are getting home and seeing if you're on and who you're playing and whatnot, and then even for them that can't get down to Nottingham, we're watching you yourselves. But one thing I think I speak for a lot of the Blackburn fans here is the pronunciation of some of our names. So I think Mr. Keddy, he's one of the ones that you've mispronounced.
I mean, I thought about this before coming on. I remember that I think my second ever game I did was against the Hawks, and yeah, it's very hard. That often the team sheet I get given is tiny. All of last season it was in handwriting, so and the one thing is, even if I think I often can say a couple names, if I know I've said it wrong the first time, I almost have to try and force myself to correct it. But when you're trying to focus on the game so much, once the name's in your head, you often it just comes out forcefully, and you don't realise you said it because your brain, your mouth starts working faster than your brain can.
Yeah, because you've got to see what's happening, and you've got to kind of bypass your brain, haven't you? You've just got to let it just flow out.
Yeah, and the commentary position for any of the Hawks fans that have been down, you'll always pass me going to the away area.
Yeah.
Not the best. I'm not the tallest either, so trying to pay attention to everything. And also, all of last season, the Lions players, most of them other than the juniors, didn't have any names on the back of their jerseys. So trying to remember everything, it's not the easiest commentary thing I've ever done. And I don't intentionally mispronounce the names, but it does happen. And a lot of people do get a bit unhappy. But the one thing that no one seems to correct me in the chat, which is slightly frustrating, because if you know I'm mispronouncing something, just help, give me a hand. It would be nice.
I think they tried. But no, when Graham said you were coming on, I'm like, right, I know which question I've got for him now. And no doubt, Ben's dad as well will probably laugh at that one along with it. So, but we're just looking at it.
How is it you pronounce his name? Because I've got him down as a note or something. Keddy.
Yeah, Keddy, Keddy.
Yeah, I've started saying that one, but for some reason I misread it wrong the first time as Keedy, put the extra E in there, and then, like I said earlier, it just couldn't get out of my head.
His official title is King Keddy of Kirkcaldy.
They could do with him up in Fife right now.
No, they definitely could, couldn't they?
They've lost 4 players, haven't they? 5.
I think a few more than that, I think.
So for their imports, I think. So
refusal to play Brits has shot them in the foot. That's the big issue.
That's very true.
So I think Nottingham, you didn't have the best of starts, but then you just suddenly become, I think you beat us, and you're taking some big scalps along the way. You're taking D-side scout. You're very close to taking Billingham. What do you think's been that change in the way that you played?
I mean, at the start of the season, I mean, you'll notice that there is a high emphasis on junior development. Half the team are probably under 18s. Obviously, the signing of Les Padalec's been a massive thing, and the more time he's had with the players, he's a player coach. He's there to help support the youngsters. And the wave we've had this year has been even better. The likes of Alex Rushby and Theo Thomas have come up, as well, signing Matthew Bell from the Dynamos down in Southwarm.
Yeah.
Those 3 have been massive. Sam Miller as well. He was at the Youth Olympics earlier in the year. So as those 3, and obviously, like I said, Matthew Bell, turning 16 able to play has helped. And yes, we beat the Simtars opening game of the season, and then we had a string of away games, which is never nice for the young players, especially with distance that you sometimes have to travel. I think once they've got their footing in, and Padalec's been able to put some of his nearly 400 games worth in the Czech Extraliga into the players, they've developed massively and come along. Like I said, was able to beat you. We've had the the game I watched on the main pad at the Motorpoint Arena, where you beat us 4-0, which was never a 4-0 goal, was never a 4-0 scoreline. I thought they played quite well. We outshot you. And Ben Keddy just decided that nothing was going in. I mean, there was 2 insane saves that he did from behind him.
Yeah, he did.
Again, Billingham, we 2-0 up, and it's been whilst we have been able to go toe-to-toe with the best in the league, there has been an issue with, we did it against Whitley as well, we're leading and we can't hold on to it. And the third period has recently been a bit of a killer for us, where we've just not been able to play the final 10, 20 minutes. We could have beat Solihull, we could have beat Hull earlier this month, and we couldn't close out the game.
Do you want to ask the question about your best friend?
Yeah. Do you think my best mate? Yeah. Do you think? Obviously, it's everybody's favourite pantomime villain, Mr. Yokoyama. Do you think him leaving? How do you think that's affected the team? Has it done it in a positive way? Has he left a big hole? Or
I'd say he would have left a big hole, but obviously it was been patched by the likes of Les Padalek. I think there's a bit of a misconception around Zach. Whilst he can be a bit of a menace on the ice and also be his biggest enemy, where it's all well and good you can be the top point scorer for the team, but if you're also the top penalty minute scorer, it doesn't help. But whilst speaking to people who've never actually spoken to him, they get this impression that he's very arrogant off the ice, and actually he's a massive sweetheart. He's lovely to talk to, and no one in the team really disliked him. He was just a bit difficult to coach. I think, for me personally, I'm very glad he's moved on, not to get rid of him, but he is a massive talent that I think deserved a shot in the National League, and he's certainly showing his own, whilst it's very ironic and very Zach-like that he's suspended right now. He has done good things. He was a victim of poor circumstances at Telford. They've got 3 imports in a struggling situation. One's injured, one's a veteran. You can't sack off an injured person. You're not getting rid of your veteran.
Yeah.
And you need to make changes. Zach had to go. Unfortunately, he's gone to Romford and he's done great things. He's going to play in the National League Cup final. He certainly deserves it. If a coach can wind it down and help him find the line between pushing people's buttons and then not jumping in and stuff, because it's all well and good you can make someone take a penalty, but if you go join them in the box afterwards, it completely defeats the point, which is probably his biggest thing. So he knows how to get a rise out of people, but then he bites back at them. And then when you've got coincidental penalties and, you know, a 5-minute power play turns into just both you sit in the box for 5 minutes, it doesn't help. So whilst I thought it would be interesting to see how Padalek and Yokoyama would do together, it's clearly not been a loss, but I don't think he was the issue as people are kind of making it out. I think there's different circumstances to why there's been a massive improvement for Nottingham.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear from someone that's obviously involved in the Lions a little bit, because certainly from the outside looking in, I think Aidan would probably agree with me. That's the way it kind of came across. That's no disrespect to Zach at all. I do believe he's a nice guy and he's a fantastic player. I don't think any teams in our league would have shown him the door if he wanted to come and play for us. I think the majority of teams would have had him at our level. It was just, like I said, from the outside looking in, that's the way it kind of appeared.
Yeah, it's very strange the way. I mean, I can understand why people wouldn't want to take him, because he can be a liability if you can't wind his neck in. But the one thing that does massively shock me is, I mean, it doesn't really shock me if you only see the on-ice product, you will believe his attitude off-ice is going to be very similar. But off-ice, he's genuinely a very lovely person. I had him commentate with me in the playoff quarterfinal at Billingham. He's such a nice person to talk to. He listens to you, and he doesn't strut around his ego. He can be very cocky with his teammates, but if you look at every hockey player, they're all kind of that boisterous, oh, I'm very good, you're terrible, sort of like to wind each other up. I mean, I play hockey myself. We all do it, but off ice, he was, the first time I really spoke to him, he was very complimentary he came up to me and sort of like, you make me sound very good. And he was almost downplaying his skill, and he was very thankful for the way I made him sound. But his mum came up to me and was like, "You're amazing. You make him sound like the best player in the world." I was like, "Well, he does. He last season he did have a habit of, especially when things were looking pretty bleak in games, of just pulling out something like a between the legs or a breakaway, go between three players, and you just kind of stand there a bit shocked, as that's just something he could do at times."
Yeah, it's a fantastic player. And you mentioned about obviously bringing Alice Padlock in. Do the lads feel his presence in the locker room, do you think?
I don't know necessarily in the locker room. I'm not about as much in that sense. I don't talk to many players. Many of the players keep to themselves. A few do talk to me. I've not really had any of them say much. He does seem quite quiet off ice. I think the real impact will be on ice, especially during coaching sessions. I think he might say a few things in the changing room, but I think he knows he's not a captain, and I don't even think he's an assistant captain. So he's a veteran in the sport. He knows when it's his turn and when it's not his turn to say something. If it's really needed, I think he will say something, but I think it is more an on-ice impact. I've seen him just pull a few players aside when things are getting a bit archbar. Just don't get yourself involved. We'll take the penalty. I think the game, either against Solihull or Hull, one of the last ones we had at home, they're both those games, got a bit tense. And a few of the youngsters just wanted to jump in and things. And he's like, "No, we've got the penalty. Let's go away." And then obviously, like I said, he's a player coach. He's going to have a massive impact with that. So I don't know if in the locker room he's doing much, because the players gather around a lot, watch the junior game beforehand. There's always a junior face-off at like 5 o'clock before a Lions game on a Sunday. And he's not really about as much. He seems to just keep to himself, and that might just be a player thing. He may also, because he's not just a coach, he's also playing. He needs to get himself into the mindset. But as far as I can see, off ice, I don't know what impact he has. He may be having a massive impact. I don't know. But certainly on ice, there is a massive impact with the players.
Well, we played the Lions and lost the first game, which was 5-3, which is a result I hope doesn't cost us at the end of the season. Like if we lose the league by 3 points, I think that's the result that cost us personally. Obviously, the 4-0 away win, which you were at that game on the main pad, which is always nice to play there. And then the last home fixture against yourselves, we won that one 4-1. So sort of a better outing for the Hawks over the 3 games, but a good result for you in that first game, definitely.
Yeah, I think crucially as well, Alex Rushby getting a hat-trick is a massive thing for us. It shows that there is talent coming through, and that game kind of sums up the impact Alex Rushby is going to have for us, at least this season. And if he stays about next season, I wouldn't be surprised if a National League team goes, "We'll have you." So, I mean, Bristol, Telford is struggling. I mean, he played for Bristol a couple of weeks ago, him and Tyler Somerton. So that game does kind of sum up the impact that Alex has. I mean, I already mentioned this, for 4-0 game, we outshot you by only 3 shots. It was an amazing game. I was doing the radio comms for it. But yeah, Ben Keddy, I mean, I was in pure shock. That game on the main pad flowed really well. It may be one of the best games to watch in the season for people. For me personally, it's going to be a highlight. We didn't play bad, which was quite nice to see that it wasn't a one-time thing. We were very lucky. I mean, there were Theo Thomas at a breakaway. It was 1-0 with Ben Keddy, and it was a very good save. It looked very lazy. People were saying, "No, it was easy," but Ben just made it look easy. I mean, you had about a quarter of a second to flash his glove down low to deny Theo Thomas. I mean, it was a clever move from the 16-year-old to try and shoot just under the armpit. Statistically, it's the best place to go for it. But Ben, there were too many times he just pulled out some magic. I mean, the fact Nottingham didn't at least get 2 was impressive. I have to say, netminding wasn't the best in terms of Nottingham. There was a couple that Luca Sheldon would have wanted the first two back, and then the second two, Darius Borthwick and Josh Crawley, both youngsters getting on the board. I mean, both were very similar to the right of Sheldon from the face-off dot, just high. I mean, taking advantage of Luca's small stature, but I think that was a very good game. And I think Nottingham, very harsh to not be much closer to people look at that and just go 4-0. Yeah, it's Nottingham versus Blackburn. It's what you expect. But you was at that game. You said to me afterwards, you were the better side. And I'll be honest, other than net minding, just from a skating perspective, I couldn't split the two. I mean, it shows in the shots. It was 37-34.
You were at that game as well, weren't you, Aidan, at the big pad at Nottingham? What did you think about it?
Same again. I mean, it seemed like Nottingham were on top a lot of the game. Like I said, Ben played his skin out, and I think me and you looked at each other on a few of the saves like, how did that not go in? I think there was one by the post where, I think everyone were poking at it, and Ben sort of flipped, turned and landed on it. I think he even led on one at one point in the game as well. So, it was a luxury for the lads to play on such a nice pad as well at the same time. So I think the game sort of, even though the score wasn't right for yourself, Dylan, I think that the game on there was a good game to watch, but it brought the best out of both teams.
Even seeing the players walk off the ice, they weren't upset. Normally you can see us 4-0 lost, they'd be a bit down. The only person who looked down was Luca Sheldon, and like I said, there was a few he would have wanted back. But coming off the ice, they were fairly happy, because I think, especially early on in the season as well, again, it's a reminder that they can do good things in the league, and they certainly can be pushing up into the mid-table come next season if we have a very similar roster. We'll have another netminder coming up. We'll have Harvey Kembry will be eligible as a senior. He's one of the best goalies in under-18s right now, and he's won the under-16s national title last year, which I also commentated. We'll have Kingston McKenzie, a Youth Olympics defenseman. So, again, we'll have more youngsters coming up, and I think Lee Kemp's done a great job following on from Luke Thomas's captain. He's certainly set an example and is a good protector of the players as well. If someone's getting on at someone, he'll step in, say, if you want to drop them, let's drop them, and then people will scurry off, because I wouldn't want to go against 6'7" man mountain of Lee Kemp.
Kempy's always been like that. He's always been the protector. We just spoke to Colin from Widnes, and he was saying the same about him.
Yeah, he's the games we've played against Hull have been very testing, but Lee. There was so many times, both games that Hull have played down in the NIC, players like Alex Kent and Tom Braley have really tried to push the buttons, and all Lee Kemp's done is say, "Come on, man," and they've all just chickened out. I mean, I don't blame them.
I don't.
Alex Kent is tall. Alex Kent is tall, but there's nothing to him, and Tom Braley isn't the biggest player, so I don't blame them for running away. But he's certainly there to protect the youngsters, which with a young core, you do need someone who's not going to allow your players to get bullied about.
Definitely.
I mean, we've just seen as well that you've added Bailey Challenge to your roster as well. That's a good signing for you.
Yeah, scored on. Well, it's not his debut former Lions play, but scored in his first game back against Solihull. A few players tried to target him, but there was more respect than the pre-ice talk that we expected. I mean, his goal slightly fluky, slightly intentionally. He just bounced it off the back of Hayden Laverick, and I thought he was playing it through the middle, and it's gone in the back of the net, and I was pure confusion. He certainly lived up the celebration. He wasn't quiet in it, and I think afterward it put a bit of a target on his back from his former teammates. But for me, I keep saying this on stream. I'm always worried. I'm just repeating myself, and people are going to get sick of it. But the biggest improvement, I think, this season has been our defense.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
In Hull, we took one of the Lions 2 netminders. And the Lions 2 netminders, if you look at their stats this season, it's not been great. They're averaging about 8 goals a game. And we beat Hull in Hull, which is very hard to do because we only let 17 shots on net because the guys realised, well, this is what we need to do. And adding Bailey Challenge is a massive improvement to what is already a very positive-looking defensive core.
The league seems to have opened up a lot since Solway made that step up into the National League. What's your opinion on the standard of the league this year, and do you think it's improved from last year?
Yeah, I think it has, and I think it's improved in a few different ways. Firstly, more teams are following the sort of thing that Nottingham and Sheffield have been doing with a lot of young players. You guys yourself, I think the best thing is you've got a couple of players on two ways with the Manchester Storm. You've got some more youngsters as well. I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, Josh Crawley, Darius Borforth, Noah Kariainen, and Liam Hine. It's nice to see the big powerhouses, you could say, like yourselves, your Billinghams, and less your Hull because they've got the two-way, but Solihull starting to also take notes and go, there are some fantastic young talents coming up from the junior leagues. We should grab them. And I'll be honest, a lot of those youngsters are better than some of these seniors that you guys have on your teams. I think Darius Borforth is going just under a point a game. He's playing well out in Germany right now. Josh Crawley got a goal tonight with Great Britain under 18. So it's nice. Unfortunately, Noah's injured right now, so you're not having the impact of him, but he'd certainly be a star. So that's probably my favourite thing, seeing that the juniors are getting game time. The league itself, I think it is brilliant. D-side signing a Witkowski mid-season is certainly impressive. He's going at nearly 3 points a game. Billingham, I mean, they've got 3 players going over 2 points a game, and all of them, I believe, are ex-professionals. I know Chris Sykes has got some Elite League seasons under his belt. Tommy Spraggan now getting the call up to the Hull Seahawks in the National League. So there's further development being seen. Leeds have done amazing, in my opinion. For a first-year team in the league, it reminds me of Solihull's first year of the National League, where you'd expect them to just be ran through. And they're holding their own. The way I sum it up is there's 4 bottom teams, with Nottingham leading it down to Widnes, where there's more of an impact on junior hockey, less with Widnes now because they don't have the partnership with Leeds necessarily because Leeds just have another Leeds team. But Leeds have really made a good step up with some of their youngsters, 2 ways with the National League team, and they've really benefited from mismanagement of the Steel Dogs and players they've got rid of. Leeds too have taken them, and like your Denekos, they've gone on very well.
Yeah, just going to say Deneko.
I mentioned Hull, that all the 2 ways that the Jets now have with the Seahawks. They're another team that's got some more junior development with Ethan Dainty, Felix Sorensen, and Reece Edwards. And Reece Edwards is probably going to play Elite League at some point. Zach Brown has also been fantastic. He deserved his Elite League call-up with the Panthers, regardless of the circumstances. And obviously he didn't get to play, but dressing, he certainly deserves the eyes on him because he's been amazing all season. He's the reason why we haven't beat them 3 times. I mean, I think every game we've played against them, we beat them once, lost twice. He's been the defining factor that's meant the one time we beat them was when he wasn't in net. So I think he's certainly been amazing. Looking around the league, Nicholas Otton at Solihull, probably the consensus best player in the league. He's also a great leader and he's very smart, which is not often seen at this level. You look at players like Zach Yokoyama last year, very skillful, not very smart. But Witkowski's not very smart, but he's very skillful. But someone like Nicholas Otterson is incredibly smart and he's a massive benefit to Solihull. The league itself, now Billingham seem to be unfortunately running away with it, especially for you guys. The quality is quite amazing to watch week in, week out. Like Nottingham, they've been able to make a few upsets and people have had eyes on them. Hull went, 7 games unbeaten? D side now with Witkowski, more eyes on them. Solihull, I wouldn't say they're as good as they was last season, but they still have quality. Just the way the league looks, lots of teams can beat each other. I'd say from Nottingham above, so Nottingham, Whitley, Hull, Solihull, D-side, Billingham, and yourselves, they can all beat each other on the right day. More times than others, Nottingham's not going to pull out an upset every single week, but we've certainly proved, especially last weekend against Billingham, we can do it. And then looking down, the notes I've got, the one really negative I have in the league, Sheffield look very lost. I know they've got a young team, but I don't necessarily know if it's an excuse. We've got a very young team, and so do Leeds.
Yeah, good point.
They've only got one import, and their import, Christian Pelling, very talented player. He's tiny, though. I mean, Graham, you've met me in person. I'm not the biggest. He's about my height. And in a league which, senior hockey, no matter where you go in the world, the big guys do dominate. And whilst he's very fast and very good with his hands, he's got his head down a lot. And the big guys absolutely batter him. I mean, I'd expected a little better from a guy who's played junior C in Canada, but he's going at under a point a game, and he's their top scorer. And Widnes have, unfortunately, they've been hurt by the introduction of the Leeds second team and losing Luca Tasadri, who's not got a team. I have no idea what he's actually doing this season. If he's still wanting to play hockey, I'd certainly be giving him a call up, because he was one of the most exciting players for me to watch last season, Luca. Widnes had 5 goaltenders, not one of them is above 90%, so I would look down there.
I believe that Luca's not so well. The last I heard, Luca wasn't so well, so he's currently not playing at the minute, trying to get himself sorted.
He was definitely one of your favourite players, wasn't he, Aidan, when he played for Widnes?
Yeah, I liked, like, when we played Widnes, the guy he was, he filled the net. He I don't know if he had like extra large pads on as well, because he's not a big lad, but he just seemed to fill the pipes, and he'd get down quick. He had quick hands, and his blocker were quick. He was great to watch. And I think one of the games that Widnes beat us, it was because of Luca between the pipes. So, when I was last talking to Harrison and whatnot, I believe they said he wasn't so well at the minute.
It's a bit of a shame, because he's certainly one of the most exciting British netminding prospects. I mean, we've got loads coming up, thankfully, because one of my biggest issues looking at the GB senior side is
who replaces Ben Bounds, yeah.
Yeah, where do we go when Ben Bounds is getting on a bit, and Jackson Whistle, injury prone and a bit inconsistent. Alex Aldell, you guys will be very grateful. We can thank you guys for how he's come on at the Storm, because started with you guys, if I'm not mistaken, and he's done amazing. He's certainly one to watch out for. I'm surprised he wasn't the starter at under-20s last year at the Worlds.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that we have a large wave of players coming up to replace when Ben Bounds goes. And I thought Luca would be one of them, and it's a shame that he's not doing too good, because it is a massive loss to the future of British hockey.
No, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying this before I went on. I mean, it's just been announced that with us that Josh has gone on a 3-way with Telford. Josh Crawley has just gone 3-way with Telford, but it's all right having them there or whatnot, but you don't want them to have little time on each bench. And, would you look at maybe nurturing their players and giving them that much game time, a bit more game time and a bit more experience? So, Alex at the minute, he's getting great training, but he's getting splinter in his bottom by sitting on the bench, second line into Storm's goalie. It's like, how do you work that out?
I think as well, unfortunately, at the Panthers, especially last season, netminding became a bit of an issue, especially when our backup decided to walk, because he basically threw a tantrum because he wasn't playing. He didn't do very good, especially for an NHL draft pick. You expected a lot better of him. He struggled, so he got confirmed to be a backup when it looked like they was going to just rotate both of them, because they looked fairly even at the start of the season, would rotate them. Stojanovic pulled clear, and our backup walked out on his contract because the tantrum wasn't being played. I would have taken Alex. I mean, Alex, he's one of those players which is, again, unfortunate to his circumstances. It's not even a case of what most elite league teams do, especially the Panthers with Luca Sheldon. we'll put a Brit on the bench to make up our numbers. It is a benefit for the Storm to have a Brit on the bench, but it was competing with Evan Veninger, who top 2 goalies in the league. But then when Alex did play, he put up very similar numbers and was quite good himself. I commentated 2 games at the Storm. I believe O'Dale played a bit of one of the games I did. He's fantastic, and it's not that he's doing terrible. It's just his competition. It doesn't matter how good he is, he's up against one of the best goalies the league may have seen for a while in the Elite League, especially going up against how good Matt Greenfield was. So I certainly would have taken Alex as a starter at Nottingham. He certainly proved himself that he can hold his own.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. It's true what you say, though, about what do we do next in terms of British netminding? Who would you see filling that spot currently? Who's the next person? Sam Gospel, maybe?
Well, honestly, I would possibly. It's very tough because I think we do need to look down at the National League for a lot of players, because we put Brits into the British system and take them to the World Championships simply because they're in the Elite League. But players like Kieran Brown, who refuse to play in the Elite League because it's easier, not necessarily easier in the sense of competition-wise, but it's easier in the sense of living and the ability to earn money. But they are, I'll be honest, Sean Norris is a great example of it. Great in the National League, but Kieran Brown, he's better than him. But because Sean Norris decided to go to Guildford and Belfast, and it seemed he struggled at Guildford this season, we'll put Sean Norris in simply because he's in the Elite League. I think Gospel probably will be about for a bit. I would also like to say Lucas Brine, probably. Actually, the way he's playing, he had a great weekend. He was taken as the 3rd string to the Worlds last year. Got game time, I believe, in our final game. Certainly a talent that's, at least on my radar, come out of nowhere. But I'd say that in 5 years' time, we've got a lot better than what's in the National League coming up right now. I think if you look 5 to 10 years down the line, Ben Clark-Leach will probably be the go-to for the senior team. He's currently one of the 2 netminders, along with my good friend Max van Mullum, away in Germany right now. Ben lost last night. Max won this evening. But Ben's with Widnes NIHL 1. Sorry, not Widnes, with the Wildcats NIHL 1. And he's got a 2-way now of the Wildcats in the National League. He's doing great things for himself, quality netminder, and the way he's improving massively as well. He's also got the build that coaches like. He's very tall, got very broad shoulders, so he ticks a lot of boxes, and he's a talent. So I think it will probably something along the lines of, if we're looking at 10 years down the line for the GB, we'll have Gospel maybe for a couple of years backing up Whistle, and then we'll have Ben Clark-Leach, O'Dale, and probably someone like Max van Mullum. I know there's a bit of bias in there of me, but Sam Ellis as well. Sam Ellis has gone abroad. If I'm not to be, I had a conversation with Anthony Russell from Banners on the Wall about this yesterday, with how GB junior coaches just see a British player playing in America and go, "We'll have him." They'll not be that good because the players know each other in this league, and there's an American guy that they've never met. It's hard to instantly bond. Whilst the players play each other week in, week out, they're against each other. They still know each other and are very good friends. So they have very good chemistry. And then picking the random Americans may not necessarily work. But if Sam Ellis does do well in AAA and he does get the right development, which AAA sounds amazing to us over here, but people don't realise how broad it is. And you can either have an amazing AAA team, or it could be just in AAA in name, and the coaching can be not very good, which could slow Sam Ellis down. But if it does work for him, Sam Ellis could also spring a surprise and make massive gains if the coaching system of the team he's in is right.
Just going back to our league, then, the Moralee, if you had to pick a player to fill each position, so we'll have 2 wingers, a centre, 2 defensemen, and a netminder from They can be from any team within our league. Who would just start in 6B?
Oh, this is very tough because, especially for me, not every team has played a Lions game yet at home, so I've not been able to witness everyone. So, and it's even worse for where most people go for this route down Billingham. They played obviously at Nottingham, but I was in Sheffield with the GB1, so I've not actually seen Billingham. I've not seen Billingham play at all this season. So I'll go netminder, Zach Brown. I think he's just been too good. In terms of defense, this is going to be a tricky one. I may have to go with a large amount of bias here, as I don't focus much on the defense other than outside the lines, because defense isn't something when you're commentating you're focusing on much.
That's true. We're also a forwards league, aren't we? Really, like a true stay-at-home defenseman isn't really appreciated for what they bring to a team. I think people see the more sort of like Chris Letang-esque two-way defenseman, don't they? People tend to notice them more, I think.
Yeah, defensemen in this league genuinely don't get much notice, but also another reason why it's very hard for me to pick defensemen from other teams is because the defence for Nottingham has been that much of an improvement. It sticks very firmly in my head that these guys have made some very good steps and they are looking very good and much improved. So week in, week out, I'm thinking the likes of Lee Kemp for the reason that he's a massive protector. You mentioned two-way defenseman. Well, I can think of two off the top of my head. You've got James Mather, he's had a very good season, and Matthew Bell for Nottingham. They're both very good two-way defensemen. So with, like you said, it's very hard to focus on them. But for what I can think of at the top of my head, I'll go Lee Kemp for a stay-at-home big guy. I mean, he's not going to rack up your points, but he's certainly going to bring a bit of that old school and make it difficult for you. And he certainly can fight if needs to be. And I will go with Matthew Bell, one of the acquisitions from the south coming up to the north, which is always nice to see because, in my opinion, south is a little bit better than north. I think we see that at playoffs, and we also see at the junior levels, the south are producing better players for whatever reason. Matthew Bell has been a very good two-way improvement in terms of creating offense from defense, and his outlet passing has been very good for Nottingham. So I'll have to go with those two with a bit of bias and a bit of lack of knowledge off the top of my head. And for forwards, one person that lots of people might pick, Richard Hagar. He, in my opinion, at least when Hull been to Nottingham, he's not flashed very well. And also, it's going to be very hard to pick out wingers off the top of my head. I may just have to go with three random forwards because the team sheet I get just says forwards and it didn't specifically pick out the wingers. As much as he's a bit of a pain as it's been put by loads of people, Witkowski just does his own thing. You can't coach him. He just goes out and does whatever, but it's showing. The results are there. I think I looked, he's on about 54 points. So you can't not take him.
Definitely earning his money.
Yeah. I had a quick chat. I asked Mike Clancy how you got him. He just looked at me and smiled. He didn't give me an answer. So I think that told me enough.
It's Sean Bevington's checkbook, that, I believe. That's a joke between me and Sean, that.
I'd like to throw in a youngster as well, but again, that leads. I don't want to say any more Lions players. I do want to spice it up a bit. So I'm going to go with Witkowski for, the obvious. I think, to balance out the lack of intelligence, we're going to have to go full intelligence. I'm going to take Nicholas Otterson. 2 games in 3 weeks against Solihull at home, bane of our lives. The way we beat D-side is we just put Luke Birchnell man-marked Witkowski, and Witkowski didn't know what to do because he's not a very smart player for all his talent it's showing. And a 17-year-old who's just come back from a broken hand just bullied him. once a player sat on him who's also half his size, didn't know what to do. Nicholas Otterson, we tried the same thing. We put Birchnell on him, and Otterson just went, okay, and walked into his own zone. And Birchnell followed him, but what's that doing?
Yeah, he played that Swedish style, doesn't he, where he gets lost and players find it hard to pick him up.
Yeah, Matt Bradbury really nailed D side when we played them with how we dealt with them. And then was like, we'll mimic it with Solihull. But Otterson is smarter than Witkowski. And basically, Otterson just let us play 4-on-4, which benefited Solihull because they're a lot of them play roller hockey, which is 4-on-4. So it actually played into their hands rather well. So I think we shot ourselves in the foot with that one. I would have just got Birchnell in there if I'm honest. When we played 5-on-5, it was a lot closer than when we allowed them to play 4-on-4. And I think for my final forward, so Witkowski and Otterson, we'll take Ian Brown. He's an import on 58 points right now from 20 games. It would be harsh not to pick a Billingham player. I think if any Billingham fans are listening, they might crucify me. There's a lot of people like to crucify me in the YouTube chat for many reasons. Yeah, we'll go Ian Brown. Yeah, 3 forwards, Brown, Witkowski, Otterson, then a lack of defensive knowledge because it's very hard to pick up, and especially commentators go, oh yeah, he's doing very well defensively.
Yeah.
Especially for other teams when you're not seeing them week in, week out. It's going to be Lee Kemp and Matthew Bow, and in goal we're going to take Zach Brown because, again, bane of my life right now, like Ben Keddy's been. It's just been a bit of a pain for Nottingham to play against him.
Do you want to give it a go, Aidan?
You put me on the spot there, didn't you?
Straight under the bus.
Yeah, well and truly. I mean, I can't not, but we've got to have Ben in goal straight away.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben straight in goal. Defence. I've been impressed with Matty Cross this year. I know I've got to stay at home with a Hawks player, so I'm giving it to why Matt had a good game at Nottingham as well. So when you're on the big pad,
yeah,
and he's come on leaps and bounds.
I'd argue he's probably the most underrated defenseman in this league. Again, it's hard. You both understand it's hard not to be biased sometimes, but I think Matty Cross is definitely one of the most underrated defensemen in our league.
Yeah, I remember his first game. I remember, calling him out when he was coming on the ice and seeing that, and then just seeing the massive strides that he's made going forward. Some of the important tackles he's made, some of the important, even the passes and whatnot. So, even some of the big hits that he's taken from there, and he's got up, dusted himself on, and just carried on playing. So I'll go with Matty Cross. Next defenseman. Possibly Moss from Billingham. The guy just, he just puts himself about. He attacks, and like I say, he's a bit of a two-way defenseman. Really, he plays up, he plays down. He likes to mix it up a little bit. He does some of the ugly stuff. So yeah, I'd give a big shout to Moss from Billingham. Forwards, you can't not have Batowski, you can't not have Otterson. Both of them have been amazing. Even funnily enough, I've said Matty in defence, and he's going to hate me for this, but he dispossessed him in Solihull, drops his stick, skated 2/3 of the ice with a puck at his feet, and played the puck into, I can't remember who scored. Race. Yeah, he passed it into Race like a Premier League footballer. Literally did the puck that way. So we'll give it to Otterson. Witkowski, I've not seen him playing the skin yet. I've not seen that. But I've seen a couple of things on the internet about what he's done. So yeah, I'll go Witkowski and Otterson. Third front player. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. I've seen Elder play. Elder's done well. Both of them old Kai brothers from Solihull. Just trying to think who else. Whitley.
Edgar, maybe.
I'm going to say Edgar. Edgar's done good. But I'd like to bring it back home and go with Jacob.
Yeah, thought so.
I'd like to come back home and go with Jacob because, the stuff the guy can do, he just makes hockey look seamless, and he's like he's skating on earth sometimes, and he can beat a man, and he can leave he can leave any netminder grasping at her. We saw that in the final when he scored that goal against Brown. In one of the penalties, he just sort of like dropped his shoulder, deep the stick, and then just had him beaten at his post. So I think I'm going to go with Jacob. So I'll go with Jacob Otterson, Batowski, Moss, Matty Cross, and Ben in net.
Not a bad selection.
I think it certainly as well, kind of the way we've all struggled to do that shows the quality across a lot of the teams. Because I think we didn't really want to pick our own teams. We wanted to try and find players from around the league. It certainly sets an interesting precedent if, say, like VIH decided, say like at the National League playoff finals, we'll have a South one versus North one, like All-Star game. The players from there, that could be quite an interesting one if you did four full lines of both North and South. I mean, the talent in both of them, that would be quite impressive, especially with the mix of youngsters and experienced former professionals in our league. I think that would be a game I would pay to watch on its own, let alone in like a weekend package at the National League finals.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that would be good.
I've just escaped that one, so we'll swiftly move on. One last question then, Dylan, before we let you go. We're going to put you on the spot again and ask you for some predictions. Who do you think is going to take home the major trophies this year? So can we get a prediction for winners of the league, the cup and the playoffs?
Oh, dear.
You're going to get atted in the comments for this, so just remember.
I'll be honest, unfortunately, I don't want to say this. I'd like it to be someone different, but I think Billingham I think they're winning the league. I don't think, even though you've got a game in hand over them, and then like if you win that, it will only be 6 points. But
yeah,
I feel like the way that using your games versus their games against the Lions, in terms of how beatable they are, you lot, and you're not going to like me saying this. I mean, it was a massive shock. You pulled a brilliant comeback and then lost 9-0 to them. There's certainly a fire in them that makes them a little bit untouchable. But I've also got it in my notes as well to cut you guys some slack. You lot have gone and acquired some junior players. You are looking more on junior development as well. Whilst Billingham, if you look at every roster, they look what I'd say the most serious in terms of wanting to win the league in Ian Brown, Chris Sykes, Michael Elder. They've now got Tommy Spraggan on a two-way with the Seahawks. People like to, I know it's going to sound very funny in an actual competitive sense, but compared to everyone else, they are fully try-harding it in a way. All three netminders are above 90%. So every other team looks to be trying to do a favour as well with the juniors. They have, with all due respect, other than Tommy Spraggan, do not have a good junior programme up in Billingham, but they have got a fair bit of money for former professionals like Chris Sykes and some very good imports as well. So I feel like over the rest of the league, the league is a grind. It's a long stretch. I don't think anyone can beat the 5 that Billingham have. In terms of playoffs, it's a bit hard to call because it's months away, and a bit like Solihull at the end of last year, where they completely fell off a cliff come March, and when people like, could Solihull be in the mix there? And they just fell off and went nowhere, and we nearly beat them at the end of the season. Things can change, so it's a bit of a hard one to call, but I feel like I'm going to go for playoffs. I want to say Blackburn, but the way the league's looking, we could actually play you in the playoffs in the quarterfinals.
That's true.
And I would like to say for the exact same reason I think you lot could win the playoffs, the juniors will develop. It's a short playoffs in the Anthony Russell literally said this on Banners on the Wall tonight. UK playoffs are not much of a grind as it is elsewhere in hockey. It's a short spell. It's like the Cup. It's practically the same as the Cup. you just need to hit form at the right time, and you've won the playoffs. We could cause an upset, and I'm not saying we're going to win, but we could certainly at least make it to the semi-finals if we play our cards right. But I feel like Noah Kariainen won't be injured anymore. Your juniors will have more experience, and I think if you do beat Nottingham, if it does work out that you play Nottingham in the quarters, it's not going to be an easy game. It will be a bit of a grind, which, at least from my perspective, will be a massive motivator to the teams. Whereas Billingham will walk all over either Leeds or Sheffield, who they play, and they'll feel a bit overconfident. But you guys will have a fire in your belly, having to go through a bit of a grind and a tough matchup. So I'll go with Blackburn to take the playoffs for that reason of momentum, and the youngsters will be much more. They'll be fully in with it. And the cup, we've not actually got the full bracket yet, have we? I'm just going to try and find it. I know Billingham are already through.
I think it's pretty much going to be us, Hull, Billingham, and D-side. I can't see it changing too much.
D-side, yeah. I think we've all qualified, to be honest with you. I think it just depends on Billingham and D-side as to whether they're first or second.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'd agree with that.
Again, Billingham would be the easy answer. Speaking to Mike Clancy, his team actually do well when he's not there on the bench, which don't know if you can read too much into that when I spoke to him at the weekend. Again, D-side are one of those teams that, especially in the way the cup will work, I've been told it's not a nice place to play away at D-side. If D-side...
It's a funny old rink, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you lot will probably play D-side by the looks of it.
Yeah, that's what it's looking.
If they can get under your skin, looking at how it will work out, two not very nice places to go play away, Hull and D-side. It very much could actually be a case of Hull versus D-side in the final if Hull and D-side can make their home legs what you'd expect them to do, which is nasty to go to. And yeah, I'm gonna take a wild one. I'm gonna say Hull. I'm gonna say Hull are gonna make it nasty at home. Whether it's first leg or second leg. If it's at first leg, I'm almost certain it will be Hull, because I think Hull will be able to make it nasty, get an early lead, and put Billingham on the back foot and make them a bit overconfident and make it uncomfortable. I mean, again, it's shown it when you guys played Billingham that if you do upset them, they will hit you 10 times harder. But I think Hull just have that certain extra level of nastiness to them when you've got like Alex Kent walking about, who just likes to get in people's heads a bit. He's almost mimicking a bit like Yokoyama over at Hull. So I think Hull will probably take not any certainty, but I think Hull might spring an upset.
Brilliant. What an advert for our league that would be as well, with 3 different clubs winning all the major silverware.
Well, it's in my opinion, it's either going to be it's either going to be Billingham take all 3, or it's going to be one team for each trophy.
Fair enough.
Nottingham win something. We're going to win playoffs. Absolutely. Matt Bradbury's got a magic stick. He's got a magic wand somewhere in the changing rooms.
And £5 in your pocket for saying that. Thank you for taking the time then, Dylan, to come on the podcast. Where can people find you on social media if they want to look you up after this episode?
On Twitter, it's at DylanPick23. You can see me, posting stuff about the Lions, sort of spam posting some stuff, get to hear my thoughts, trying to be a bit more professional in the sense of, you'll see lots of journalistic stuff. You'll see my articles that I do covering the Nottingham Panthers for the Nottingham Sport newspaper. So you'll see. So if you like your hockey content, you'll see a lot of good things. I like to comment a lot on the junior system, especially, and how the GB is doing. So if you're a fan of a bit more broader than NIHL one, which I'm not too sure about Blackburn fans, because you lot are very hardcore in this league, which is very odd to say in the sense of UK hockey. A lot of a lot of fans of NIHL 1 are fans of just hockey in general, but from my experience, a lot of Blackburn fans do just like this league in the sense of like Elite League fans only know the Elite League. But if you do want to see a bit more of hockey in this country on a much, much broader scale, yeah, at DylanPick23 on Twitter, or now X.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast, Dylan, and best of luck with everything you're doing for the rest of the season.
Well, thank you. Good luck to you guys as well. We see you down at the NIC one more time, I believe. And probably the last time we meet until playoffs, because I'm almost certain the way the league's looking, I think Billingham will run away with it, and no one's going to touch us in 7th because we're not going to touch 6th.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time, mate.
All good.
Hawks Talk.